Hello, I want to have a casual chat about a book I just read, which I think is excellent and beautifully written, and which I've found very impactful and helpful in reconciling who I am as a person and how I live my life in relation to my personal past and cultural references and my connection to memory, because so much of who we are is based upon what happened to us in the past. But our grasp on these memories can so often be slippery. And I think we often have this sense that if we can only understand the truth about our past and everything that has happened to us, then we can deal with it, then we can move on. But this book gives a very different point of view, and it's A Flat Place by Noreen Masud. It's a memoir about the author's experiences growing up in Pakistan's capital in very difficult circumstances, and she had a very cloistered life. She was only allowed to leave the home to go to school. Her father was very controlling and domineering. He emphasized a Western education and that she should mainly speak English rather than Urdu. And we follow as she's established an independent life for herself in Britain, and how she enjoys traveling to locations which are very flat, like Morecambe Bay and Orkney, these landscapes that are mainly empty. And these are places that people don't naturally like travel to or gravitate towards them, because I think when people go out into nature, they more often look for lawn hillscapes or mountains or great big forests. But she finds great comfort in these empty landscapes, and always has done ever since she was young, and would spy outside the window of her home, or passing in a car, these very flat fields. And she often mentally travels back to them when she's in a difficult circumstance, and or is trying to deal with memories of the past, because she's someone who, if people can be crudely classified as introverts or extroverts, she's much more on the introvert side. She really prefers her own company and staying at home, and finds social circumstances very difficult to navigate. So I really related to her in that way. And obviously she has very different circumstances and backgrounds from me, but I'm also someone that grew up in one country and then moved to another, that also moved to Britain. And I often find it difficult to navigate this like sense of national identity, because I'm naturally quite critical of my native country of the United States, but I also feel slightly protective of it when people make stereotypes about Americans, or broadly categorize Americans as a certain type of person. And I also love and really embrace Britain, but I recognize that there are many injustices and prejudices and that exist here. And the author recognizes this too, and she often points these things out, especially when traveling to a lot of these physical locations around the UK, that they can be really wonderful circumstances, and she can meet really great people, but she can also recognize that sometimes that she can be stereotyped as a certain type of person, and she often picks out things like if you travel to rural areas of the UK and you go into a shop, you might see a gollywog, a kind of a doll, which is a kind of horrible racial stereotype, but these still like exist around the UK and are just kind of accepted that they're there. And I found it very shocking when going to these places and seeing these things, but more so that she finds in these locations such a great sense of comfort, and recognizes that it's personally empowering for her to go to these places and inhabit these spaces. And while she's there, these memories of the past will come upon her, sometimes in fragments, sometimes with great clarity, and sometimes they're a bit obscured, and she questions whether these are things that actually happened. And rather than sort of seizing upon these memories and trying to take them as indicators of why she is the way she is, she just lets them pass through her mind. And this feels like such a healthy and empowering way of embracing the past and all of the complexity of what happened to us and what's made us who we are, rather than trying to force this understanding on it and interpretation of it. And I found that really a wonderful new perspective that I hadn't really entirely considered before. And she also recognizes that it's a very personal thing to her, finding comfort in these flat landscapes, and that for other people, they'll probably draw sustenance and find it comforting going to different kinds of environments. And personally for me, I've always found it tremendously comforting going into the sea when it's very choppy, when there's lots of waves. I just love inhabiting water like this, that's where I'm like constantly like contending with these waves that are like breaking against me and which are coming at me constantly. But I just find it so nurturing, like being in this kind of environment. And I've always had this romantic idea about surfing since I love choppy, wavy waters like this. And I have a sort of funny story in that when I traveled to California once and went to a beach on Malibu and finally decided that I want to have a surfing lesson. I want to surf for the very first time. And I had this instructor that was this real sort of stereotype of a Californian surfer dude, that he had bleach blonde, long hair, and he was really tanned and muscular and gorgeous man. And he took me out into the water and talked in a way like a total stereotype surfer dude of like yeah, oh man, yeah, like that girl in a bikini, she's such a babe, and like, oh yeah, I might go to the beach party later. And I was like, wow, people like you actually exist. And so we went out surfing, and he was teaching me the moves of how to surf, of that you kneel on the surfboard and then you stand up when a wave comes at you. And so the first time I went out into the waters and tried to do this, and I knelt on my surfboard and a wave hit me, and immediately my knee was impacted, and I felt my kneecap slide over to the side of my leg, and it was such a shock. I just like immediately like pushed my kneecap back in place, but I could tell my leg wasn't okay. And I called out to the surfer dude's instructor and said, I think I hurt my knee. And he was like, oh, okay, just head back to the surf shack. And then he went out into the water and just left me there. And so I had to limp back to the surf shack with my surfboard. And that was my experience of surfing. Anyway, that's a tangent and getting very off topic. But by the way, a quote which is at the beginning of the very first chapter of this memoir is from Virginia Woolf's The Waves. I'm speaking of waves, and that is my favorite novel of all time. So that also instantly endeared me to this memoir, but also following the author's progress of traveling through these landscapes and sifting through the past, and but also dealing with her present. Part of this is set during the recent pandemic and lockdown, which she found to be a really personally wonderful time for her, even though she recognized it was very difficult for so many other people, and there was so much death and really difficult circumstances for the country and society. But personally, she found it wonderful to have an excuse to stay at home and just to be on her own lonesome. And I found that also during the time of the pandemic. I mean, there was a lot of anxiety that came up during this time as well. But personally, I'm lucky to be in circumstances that I'm in a happy relationship and I have a really nice home. So personally for me, it was a really great time, and I am someone that prefers to spend time at home. So yeah, it was great reading about her experiences of that and her being honest about these circumstances, but also yeah, following her progress of her interactions with her mother, and she travels with her mother to one of these locations, and her mother is British where her father was Pakistani, and at one point her mother left her father and her daughters with her daughters, and their father disowned Noreen Masud, and so she recounts the circumstances of how she got to this point in her life, and why she finds these environments so comforting, and it's just wonderful following her process of dealing with all of this personal history, both this larger like national and cultural history, but also her personal circumstances and how it's made her who she is, and really reconciling who she is as a person. And it was just wonderful following that journey, and all of the great literary references that she draws into this book, not just Virginia Woolf, but many others, which are enlightening and give this different point of view. And it gave such a great perspective that I found very helpful. So I'd love to know if you've read this memoir and what you think about it, or if you're interested in reading it now. Please let me know about that in the comments below. It's been nominated for a number of awards. Recently, she was shortlisted for the Sunday Times Young Writer of the Year, and it was really great going along to that ceremony. She didn't win. The author Tom Crew was chosen as the winner, but I was really glad that the awards highlighted her as a really promising young writer, and I'm looking forward to reading anything else that she writes in the future. But this has also been longlisted for the first Women's Prize for nonfiction long list, so I hope it does well in that competition. But yeah, let me know if you are interested in reading this book, or if you've read any other memoirs or books that you found have given you a really good new perspective on the past and memories in this way. I'd love to hear about that as well. But I hope you're doing well and reading good things, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye-bye.